You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement. Help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement. That's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And today we have another incredible family and friends edition. In the studio today, in the studio with me is former Hopkins Royal, former University of Minnesota Gopher, former probably a bunch of other European teams or a few other professional European teams, Zach Puchtel. Thank you for being in the studio with us today, Zach. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Royce, good to be here.
And I can't wait to talk about your book. Coming in, is it available on Amazon and
available on Amazon and my website?
What's the website?
ZachPuchtel.com.
There you go, ZachPuchtel.com, and you'll see the name in the description or in the title of the episode. So no worries there. Before we get started here, and I want to hear your story and talk about your story. And I mean, we got as long as you want. We do long format. We do hour and a half. If it gets crazy and it ends up being longer, it's all good. It's all good. Whatever needs to be said. But I want to start off by telling a story.
Please.
Can I tell a story?
Yeah.
Okay. Both of us are alumni at Hopkins High School. Zach, much more distinguished than myself. I transferred to Hopkins High School when I was a junior. Didn't play my junior year because I came probably a month before the season was over. So back then you couldn't just transfer wherever you want and play. Different day today in sports. But I played my senior year. We went 31-0, had a pretty historic season, won the state championship. Zach went to Hopkins all 4 years, if I'm correct. Right?
Yeah, I grew up through the Hopkins system.
He grew up in the Hopkins system, and so he's a much more tenured alumni than myself. And I love that we have you here today, because I help Coach Novak still coach the high school boys, just because I love it. I love being around the young men. I love being able to influence the young men through sports and basketball. I think sports teaches a great number of lessons, while there's still some dangerous things it does as well. I'm sure you're going to talk about that a little bit. We can go there for sure. But still some good fundamentals and principles for helping build young men, teamwork, discipline, self-sacrifice, a lot of good things in there. So I still help Coach Novak, and your name comes up a lot. And it comes up because in sports, there's how good you are, there's how hard you work, and then there is politics, the politics of sports, right? Like
Sure.
Who you're supposed to be versus who people see you as, or let's say who you're supposed to be versus who you really are. Sometimes that works in your favor, sometimes it works against you. For example, when I was coming up, I had the good fortune to be ranked really high, really young. At 15 years old, I was one of the top 20 players in the country, which is just more or less bullshit. Like, if I'm being honest, I mean, when you're 15,
you were good.
Yeah,
but
but
you deserve to be top 20.
Yeah, but I mean, who fucking really knows how good you're going to be, right?
True.
Now, I will say, and this is a strange phenomenon in basketball, where confirmation bias. And I'm not saying it's all bullshit, because it's kind of the starter point where they pick a group of people from that age group all around the country and say, from the skills and the size of this young man right now, we think he's going to be there at the end as one of the best players. That's what they're basing it on.
Yep.
And in my class, it ended up being relatively accurate. I mean, you look at people like Lance Stevenson, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, a few others. Xavier Henry was a name. There are a lot of there's some name Avery Bradley, right? So there are a lot of names that did end up being at the top of the heap, but there were some names that in the top heap that fell off, and there were some names that were nowhere to be found at the top that rose to the top as time went on. The probably the most famous one or most notable one is Kawhi Leonard, who was in his junior and senior year probably ranked 140th, maybe 150th in the country. Obviously ended up being probably the best player, most accomplished player in the class of 09, if not one of the best players of all time. I mean, at his position in the NBA.
I wonder sometimes if Kawhi cared about being the best, how good he'd actually be.
Well, that's another question too, right? I mean, he's pretty scary already. I mean, he's amazing. He's amazing. And I like his temperament. I like the way he approaches the game. Besides the fact that I think he's sat out a little too much, but I can't be the judge of that because I don't know all of the details about his body and his injuries and things. I don't want to preemptively say that, but he seems to have sat out a lot in recent years, and that's not a part of the player persona that he's carried and that's made him successful. He came through that Popovich system, and he was kind of a glue guy that would do anything you needed him to do in order to win. Just so happens he ended up being really fucking good as well, so he was a star that would do whatever you needed him to do. But he started off being a star as a defender. He was guarding LeBron, and he was doing fairly well against LeBron. I mean, as good as you can fucking do. But anyway, I say all that to say you have a similar story, and Coach Novak often refers to when you were a senior, how good you had become from when you were a freshman. Like that journey from being, a player who was decent to a player who was fucking reliable.
I'm like the Kawhi Leonard of high school basketball.
Yes, you are. No, seriously. I mean, it's funny we brought Kawhi's name up. I didn't do it on purpose, but apropos to what your story, it's like Coach says he's a guy that was reliable. I could trust him. He was smart. He understood the game, and he understood how he could impact the game and what he needed to do in order for us to win. He was unselfish. He didn't care about the glory. And so he tells a story of when the University of Minnesota coach and him spoke, you had already been at the U, but you were walking on.
That's right. So I had an interesting college experience. I actually went to Harvard originally to play football. And after my freshman year, ended up not wanting to play more football. And I went to the basketball coach at Harvard, and I asked him for a tryout. And I said, I played basketball in high school. I was McDonald's All-American. Like, let me try out with the team.
Wait, you were McDonald's All-American in high school?
Yeah.
In basketball?
In basketball.
By your senior year?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So I was like, I can switch.
Well, you're
sports.
better than me then. I wasn't even a McDonald's All-American. Holy cow.
Maybe it was like a nominee.
There's no way you were a nominee.
Yeah.
Did you play in the game?
I did not play in the game.
But you were nominated.
I was nominated.
Okay, that makes better sense.
Yeah, let's be clear.
Okay. I was like, whoa.
No, but I could play my senior year, and I'd played football and basketball at like high levels throughout all of it. I was recruited for basketball and football in college. And after just hitting my head around with football, I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to save my brain. This is something that I had a family friend, Keith Von Horst. I don't know if people know, but he played at the University of Minnesota, and he was one of the co-captains on the 49ers teams with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott. And he was the center, and he was like, the pillar of that team. And by the time he was in his late 50s, he had some serious medical issues going on where it was difficult for him to move or to speak. And that was really sad. And I remember watching him and thinking to myself, I love football. I love playing sports, but I love my mind and my ability to be present more than that.
Amen.
And so I switched sports, and the coach at Harvard didn't want to give me a tryout.
The basketball coach.
The basketball coach didn't want to give me a tryout. And I really felt motivated at that time to prove myself athletically.
Yeah.
When you're in your young 20s, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I called Jimmy Ware, who was at the time
director of basketball operations at the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Also a Hopkins alumni.
That's right.
Recently moved from Park Center, where he had great success as the head coach, now back to help Kenny and his last several years. I don't know how many Kenny's going to stay, but Jimmy is now on the staff at Hopkins for this season.
James is amazing.
Yeah, he actually offered. He was one of the first people to offer me a scholarship too when he was coaching college. So
good move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy's great.
Yeah. So I called up James and I was like, is there a chance for me to come to the U and to play basketball? And he said, you're crazy. At the time, it was 5 years of eligibility. If you transferred, you had to sit out for 1 year.
Cold. No exceptions, no waivers.
I had 2 years of eligibility left, and I was like, I'd have to sit out one, and I'd have 1 year to possibly play.
So wait a minute. You played 2 years of football at Harvard.
1 year of football.
Okay.
Then I played rugby.
For 1 year.
My sophomore year. And then I played JV basketball and rugby my junior year.
Okay.
So after my junior year, I was like, I need something more.
Gotcha.
And so I went to the coach and I was like, let me have a tryout. He wasn't about it. Called up James and he was like, you're crazy. Go graduate from Harvard, get on with your life, do the thing. And I just wanted it. I just wanted some like high level competition. I said, well, talk to the coach, see if it's a possibility. He ended up calling me back like 2 weeks later and just being like, you're going to sit out a year. You're not going to travel with the team. You're not going to play with the team. You're going to be redshirted. But you're going to have 1 year of eligibility where you can play. And I was like, that's enough. That's the opening I want, and I'm coming. So I transferred from Harvard after my junior year to Minnesota to play basketball, where your story leaves off.
Yeah, well, yes, and that backstory is crazy. I didn't even know all of that.
Yeah.
That first of all, to go from football to then rugby to then say, hey, I want to play basketball, the Harvard coach not take you, which in retrospect, I'm sure he's kicking himself.
It was right around the Jeremy Lin time. And I would have loved to play with him. That would have been a blast.
He was a special. I played with him in Houston. He's a special guy too.
Yeah, I believe it.
And then you decide to transfer, knowing that you're gonna have to sit a year.
Yeah.
And you're only gonna have 1 year left. So you're basically putting all your collegiate athlete eggs in one basket.
I was like, here we go. It's a shot. It's the U. It's the Gophers. Let's go.
And so Coach Novak tells a story where when you finally get to Minnesota, Dan Munson, who was your head coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was a good guy. I know him. He recruited me. By the time I got to the U of M, Tubby had taken over, but I met Dan a number of times, and we've stayed in contact over the years. Good guy. Still, he's talking. Didn't have a lot of success at the U. We just got to put that out there. It is what it is,
Yeah.
But he had some success. The Big Ten's a tough conference, and there's no easy games there. But anyway, Coach Novak is talking to Dan and some of the assistants, and he says, they say, well, we don't think Zach's going to play. And Coach Novak says, he'll be starting by Christmas. And the coaches are going, what the are you talking about? Here's this football rugby player that came from Harvard. The Harvard coach doesn't even want him. Back then the Ivy League was nowhere even in consideration as being a formidable basketball league, just especially not compared to Power 5 Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And so you come from there and they're like, this guy's not even going to fucking play. By Christmas, you were starting. Coach Novak, he always said, and it's a testament to two things, and I'm going to let you tell your story, but I want to give the audience the preface of it takes a special person to accomplish that, to have your coaches at a collegiate level, high level collegiate basketball, not believe that you're going to play and make an impact to be starting. It'd be one thing if you were getting minutes when they thought you wouldn't play at all. That's feeding of itself. But to go from walking on to not having them believe that you would play and then be starting, it speaks to the fact that Coach Novak, there's a reason why he's the most winning coach in Minnesota history, because he understands the intangible things that make a player good and that make a team good. So now with that being said, is that, wherever you want to start your story, if you want to go back to childhood, if you want to start right there, I know that's a huge, from what I read in the book, that's a huge inflection point in your own personal journey right there in college sports. So
yeah, it was huge.
You take it away.
Yeah, let me start with just thanking Coach Novak, because I think he really taught me how to be committed to a team. And it was the first time that I really felt that in my life. And because of that commitment and how he coached, which I always give him credit that he coached with love. And there's a very distinct difference. I've had a ton of coaches in my life. I'm sure you have too. And when a coach coaches with love, what they do is they give you the ability to make mistakes. And so I remember Coach used to say, if you're going 100%, it doesn't matter if you miss the ball or it goes out of bounds or you commit a foul. What I want is for you to go 100%. And so he instilled that in me, that like I can go as hard as I need to go, even harder. And as long as I'm trying my best, I can stay in the game. I'm not going to be pulled. There's not going to be a shame or blame thing around it. It's like he's given the effort, keep him on the court because good things are going to happen eventually.
Right. The ball rewards energy.
And it does.
It does.
I just gave my nephew that same advice, and he just made his freshman team in Chicago, which I was really proud of him for.
Congrats.
Yeah. And so yeah, when I moved to the U, I knew that my chances were really slim. I met with Coach Munson, and I give him a lot of credit, Dan, for just allowing me to join the team.
Right.
And he was really honest with me when I showed up. He's like, your job here is to get good grades as the Harvard transfer and to not get in trouble. He's like, you're never going to play. He was honest with me. He just like threw it on the table. And after the first year of sitting out, we had like our, yearly meeting, check in, and he gave me the same thing. He's like, there's 5 centers who are above you. And I was playing center at the U.
At
I'm
6'5". 6'5".
I've never played center my entire
Which
life.
is another crazy obstacle to overcome.
I've never played center my whole life.
Yeah.
Coming up, there was always someone, Jeff Hagan, Skoglund, David Gardner. These guys were all taller. They were center characters. I was more of like the power forward, even small forward when I started developing a shot. But I was a little shaky. I hadn't played like competitive basketball in 3 years after going to Harvard. And so I got back to the U and my shot wasn't on. And Coach Munson was like, you're playing center. And I was like, okay, well, here's my shot. I got to play center.
Yeah.
And
Whatever you need, coach.
Yeah, whatever it is. So I remember after our team meeting, or it was a one-on-one meeting with him, where he said, you're welcome to stay on the team for the second year. You can hang out, get good grades, work hard, support everyone, but you're never going to play. He just hit me with it. And I thanked him for it. I stood up and said, thank you. And I remember walking outside of his office and just going, okay, well, this is that moment. This is that moment of like, I either go back to Harvard and graduate and get on with my life, or I use what he said as motivation. And every single day I do everything a little bit better and a little bit more than everyone else. And I chose the second option. And it was just this focus that came into my mind of it's all that mattered was just showing up early, staying late, doing a couple extra reps, diving on the floor for loose balls, and I started really, like, dare I say, dominating practice.
Yeah.
And like the starters didn't
I
know.
can see it in my head. I can see it in my head.
They didn't know what to do with
Explain
me.
it though. Explain some of those key moments you can kind of remember just.
So you and I are kind of different basketball players, and you play really hard as well, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I was never a big scorer. Like I think I averaged like 18 or something my senior year.
Well, you averaged more than me, but continue.
Whatever it was. You're a better scorer than I am. I've seen you play.
I would say, but when I only played one half when I was a senior because we beat everybody by 40.
Well, that's fair too.
Yeah. So I averaged 14, but it was in half a game.
14 and a half.
Yeah, there you go.
So I was like an intangible guy.
Yeah.
I was the one who like would check people coming across screens, who would like hold down who tell my teammates that screens were coming.
Back when you still could.
You can't check people anymore?
No, they took that rule away.
I'd be a horrible basketball player.
Yeah, when we say the freedom of movement politically, we don't mean the freedom of movement athletically. I hate the fact that you can't forearm check people coming through the paint anymore. It's ridiculous.
No, that was like my thing,
Yeah.
is stopping the fluidity of offensive movement.
Amen.
And
gritty, tough.
For offensive players, what they want is they want rhythm. They want to feel it. They want to be it. And so as a defensive player, in order to stop them, you interrupt their rhythm however you can. And when they're taking their hesitation dribble, rather than back up and let them see where you're going, you advance and you get up in their face so that they can't move. And then they don't know where to go because their moves aren't working because you don't allow them the space and time to be fluid with it. So this was kind of, as like a backstory, this was kind of my mentality as kind of a mindset of how to be successful as a man. Was like interrupt the flow of other men. Be defensive with other men, like stop their progress. And I think a lot of times with athletics, we're taught that to beat the other man is success. And it is, because sports is competition, and when you win, you're successful.
Right.
And so that mindset kind of got ingrained in me of like, if I beat other men, I win and I am successful. And that's been a lot of my kind of undoing of my condition and my reality as a younger man. And now much more about supporting, encouraging, uplifting.
Yes. It's a different switch, isn't it?
It's a huge switch.
Yeah.
and I was really intense as a kid. And so
Yeah.
as I was playing basketball, my intensity of defense is what allowed me to eventually earn the starting spot because Coach Munson and Coach Molinari and Coach Walker, some of the other coaches, Coach Ware, they couldn't deny it. They couldn't deny what I was doing in practice. They saw the amount of steals I was getting, rebounds, the hustle. And I think we started off the season 0-6 in the Big Ten, and we just needed a change. And so I went actually from 0 minutes, like not even end of the game. Like I was the player at the end of the roster, which I never sat on the bench my entire life.
Kept your warm-ups on.
But kept the warm-ups on. I didn't see any playing time.
Wow.
Until I started.
So they threw you right into the fire.
It was.
So wait a minute. You went from not playing to, all right, Zach, you're in the starting lineup?
Like,
did it happen over the progression of a few practices where they started working you with the starting group in 5-on-0?
It was announced 3 days before we
you
faced.
You got to be fucking Dan Munson.
Yeah, bless you, Dan. You're amazing.
So Dan and Molinari, you two fuckers.
I love Dan.
I love both of them. I love Coach
Dan.
Molinari.
But
too.
I gotta put this out there because Dan used to use me as a threat, as a legitimate threat, and say to the starters, if you guys don't start playing harder,
I'm gonna put Zach.
I will play Zach. I swear to you, I will play Zach. And I'm sitting here like the whole time, like, oh my God. The most embarrassing thing you can have is like, I'll play this guy.
Right. I might as well play the walk-on.
Right. And so he kept saying it and I just kept fueling. Just like,
you're sitting there like,
you'll play me.
Yeah,
you'll play me.
We'll see.
Play me. And so it was before Indiana, and they were like number 6 in the nation or something. Marco Killingsworth was their star. And he's like their big center. And Coach Munson started and went like, you guys haven't been playing hard. You haven't been doing the thing. And I'm like, oh, here it comes again. Now I'll play Zach. And he goes, that's why I'm starting Zach.
No.
On Indiana. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I was like, yeah. It's like, that's about right. There it is.
Let's do it.
And everyone looked at me like, what? And I was like, have you been at practice? You know, because I've been there every day.
I'm eating you guys' lunch. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So tell me about how this season starts to go now. Because you had a great season too. I mean, you were.
It was for what it was and the impact that I could have.
Yeah.
It was amazing. We won a number of Big Ten games against ranked opponents, Michigan State,
I think
Iowa.
you were averaging a double-double, right?
I wish.
No?
I mean, I think I averaged like 6 and 8 or something like that.
That's pretty close.
But it was the hustle thing. It was like I was all over the court. I was flying. And Williams Arena is elevated, so like it was almost
jump off that.
It was almost my goal sometimes to like get caught by the fans
in the crowd, right?
Yeah, so that was really fun. And it was a beautiful just experience to know that I could when I devoted myself to something.
Yeah.
And I found the intangibles. So to any, like, I gave my cousin this, or my nephew, the same advice coming up, and I've coached a number of teams since playing, is that when I choose the players who are going to be on my team, it has very little to do with their skill level. Like if you're like the man and you're a really good scorer, like you're going to make the team. Beyond that, what I want is a bunch of guys flying around the court who have each other's back and who are willing to do anything to get the ball and to win. And that's what's going to win every time.
Right.
There was I coached for a while at 43 Hoops with Chris Carr.
Yes.
And
another good guy.
Yeah, great dude. And I coached the B team, and the A team was great. They had all sorts of talent, and so I got like the second pick of all the people coming, and I chose just all the hustlers, all the guys who were just at it. And at the beginning of the season, we scrimmaged, and they beat us by like 20 or something, just ran us out of the gym. And 3 months later, I had my guys playing so hard that we scrimmaged and they called it because they couldn't move on the court just because I had them flying around.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. It's like movement, momentum, and change. Like when people get too used to things, it becomes stagnant. And when you have constant movement and excitement, it's hard to deny in sports, in life, or otherwise.
No doubt. No doubt. Beautiful story there. It's as a basketball player, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah,
I had a good college career myself. I had a good college season. I played for one season, but that's one of those. That's one of those stories that every young man needs to hear. I really believe that. Even more so than mine. I was super talented. I had all the I had all the God-given gifts you could have. I was fast. I was strong. I had big hands. I got the third biggest hands in the history of the NBA draft combine.
You do have big hands.
I got, there's all these things that working in my favor. But man, and I played on a team that had a couple walk-ons, and they were nowhere near playing. They never got anywhere near playing. So I mean, to be a walk-on, to become a starter and contribute and be productive. That congratulations, man. That is an incredible feat.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the book. Let's transition to the book. I like that backstory. Hopefully, some of our young Hopkins players will tune in and hopefully Coach Novak and Jimmy get a chance to listen to that story. It's fun, the Hopkins community. But let's transition to the book because that's more important, more why I had you on the show. Started to read it. Very interesting. Very introspective. Very unique to have men at all in this era be that introspective about their life, about their thoughts, about their feelings, about the things that they've gone through and trying to analyze those things. One of my best friends, AJ Barker, also a former Gopher, played wide receiver, had a similar, not necessarily the same, but similar in that in his younger years, his college years, his athletic years, he went through some things, some obstacles, some personal things that helped shape who he was. Started off as an atheist, now probably one of the most devout Catholics you'll find, and is the principal of a new all-boys Catholic academy called Crown of Thorns Academy. We're going to have him on soon, but I'm always interested and admire when men, especially athletes, former athletes, have these introspective conversions or awakenings. So tell me where yours began. Tell me where the book begins and walk me through this journey.
Mm-hmm. So growing up as a young man, I had a lot of curiosity around the world. And I didn't get many of my questions answered. Thoughts, emotions. I was always taught as a young athlete, like to be strong, to not show emotion, to not show feeling, to be a warrior, and to hold that hyper masculine on the court always, which serves a purpose in sports, to be honest.
And in life, yeah.
And in life.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, what that creates is personas for really strong men to not allow themselves to feel. And oftentimes, the space of feeling and emotion is attributed to homosexuality. And that, for me, was like the crux of my inner journey. So much so that at the end of, after I played for the Gophers, I transferred back to Harvard. And the culture shock of going from Harvard to Minnesota and then Minnesota to Harvard for me was really everything that was going on internally. And I remember when I was at Harvard originally and playing rugby and playing sports, everything just seemed effortless. It seemed like the world was kind of just in my palm. Anything I wanted, I could have. And when I went back to the U, and I love all of my teammates, all of my roommates, all the guys I played with, Vince Greer, Mo Hargrove.
Shout out to Vince Greer, Mo Hargrove.
Spencer Tollickson.
Yeah, Spencer, all of them.
Rico Tucker, like all these guys. And they're wonderful. And the culture around sports in the Big Ten was different than it was at Harvard. At Harvard, when I played on the rugby team, there was this comfortability of sexuality where we'd have rugby matches and then afterwards we'd have naked drink downs. Which was
what the fuck is that?
Right. Which was one of the most bonding and beautiful things I've ever seen, where it's kind of gross, but we'd take a boot and we'd drink out of the boot and we'd sing rugby songs together. And it was pure celebratory, like no gay energy. It was just men being men celebrating sort of thing. So I kind of set this as my baseline of like, oh, this is cool. Like I've never experienced this before, but we can like let it down and we can have emotions and we can feel and all this.
Move this mic. Turn this mic right towards you. Bring it a little closer to you.
Right here?
There you go. Good.
Yeah. And so I kind of set that baseline. And then when I went to Minnesota, there was this homophobic atmosphere in the locker room and otherwise, and I'm sure you've heard it in a number of sayings, but like pause specifically, when anything like referring to balls or holding balls or playing with balls,
Any sort of reference to anything could be interpreted as physical gay touch.
you name it. It's like
Okay.
fear that, oh my
No
God,
homo,
it could,
pause.
no homo, pause, no homo,
Right.
pause. And
Still very prominent in the sports community.
still very prominent. And so I started internalizing this like, well, like I have these feelings and like I'm cool with being naked around men and I don't feel turned on by them, but I'm comfortable in this space. And yet I'm getting this feedback of like, yo, pause, no homo, continuously. And so what went on for me internally was this question of, am I gay? Like,
So you're saying, so wait, let's be clear. So you're saying that the culture of where most people now are saying that the inundation of what they call the LGBTQ agenda is maybe pushing people to consider that they're homosexual when maybe they aren't. Yours was the opposite, where the you know the what I want to call the hesitancy about gay culture in the basketball community specifically, or in the locker room, had you thinking I might be gay.
That's funny. I've never thought about it like that.
It's completely inverse.
It
right?
is. It's inverse.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
they definitely weren't encouraging me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different than today.
It was fear. And I was
It was
like,
fear.
well, if there's that fear around it, like maybe I am because I'm comfortable with it. And at the time, there were very few people I could talk to around it. It became a real internal experience. And I let out all of that angst on the court. I think it's what made my defense so great, honestly. It was just the release where I could go and just play and not think about things. And then when I went back to Harvard, a lot of the thoughts continued, and it was a real confusing time for me. I remember not being able to really ground, and I spoke with a couple friends. I remember experimenting a bit with like, I made out with a guy at a friend's wedding in New York one time, and it was like just a kiss. And I know even to say something like that in like the sports community is like cringe, right?
Non-starter.
Like, yeah, non-starter. People are right now being like, oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I was confused. I was like, if I am, I am. And if I'm not, I'm not. But like, I got to find out one way or the other because this in between is not serving.
Well, and I want to say some pause right here. And I don't mean
Yo,
pause
pause.
like that, but no pun intended. I want to say this because I've been as big of a critic of the current formulation of LGBTQ propaganda pushed on the young people. But I grew up in the Twin Cities, so I've never been homophobic. I mean, I grew up in the Twin Cities is a place that is very LGBTQ friendly, let's say. I mean, there's just a lot of the advocacy and activism of it, and there's a huge gay community in our city. And I've been successful enough to be in rooms and places with people from all walks of life. And even there, as a professional athlete, some of the things you get invited to, there are plenty of people there who are LGBTQ. There are plenty of people who are LGBTQ in silence.
True.
Right? Who are gay, who don't talk about it. They're not flaunting it, but they are. They indulge in the sexual activity of it. And I want to say this because as an aside, not to break away from your story, we're having an ideological Gordian knot in American political culture where people are so polarized on any one issue, it's hard for us to talk about any issue.
Right.
And homosexuality being one of them, where, for example, and I just give this example, politics is greatly split and divided on faith, non-faith. Christian, believe in God, believe in some form of God, believe in some form of spirituality, and then the secular and scientific that says all of that is kind of fantasy, right? So we kind of have a dividing line like that. On one side, the right side, typically you see a more Christian identity, and because of that Christian identity and what the Bible says about homosexuality, they tend to be the side that's fighting against the left that is more open, pro, anything goes homosexuality. There's a lot of contradiction in here because even though I'm on the right, I see the rise of a lot of homosexual commentators of right-wing politics who are saying, hey, you know, I'm gay, but I don't believe in teaching a young boy to be a transgender, right? And then you also have, you know, traditionally people who have always been right-wing. I use the name somewhat hesitantly because YouTube likes to ban episodes that have these kind of names thrown around. But Milo Yiannopoulos, right? I don't know if you know who Milo Yiannopoulos
No.
is. Milo Yiannopoulos is a British political commentator. Used to write for a publication called Breitbart, and openly homosexual. Always has been since he popped on the scene. But he still advocated for conservative right-wing politics, and he, for a long time, was embraced by the by the right wing of the political community worldwide. And then he started saying shit people said was beyond the pale, and then he got kind of canceled. Then he got really canceled. Now he kind of came back. Then he had a Catholic conversion, said he's no longer homosexual. I don't know how true that is because I'm not in this business. I just mean, as a preface to what you're saying now, people got to understand some of these things have to be discussed, and I applaud you for being able to talk about it the way that you are right here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. There's as far as like the politics of it go, I think everyone should love who they love and not push that on anyone else, especially children.
Yeah.
I think children need to be protected from all conversations around sex until they're of like an age where they can think for themselves. And that's just,
What age would you think that is on face value?
I think 16-ish, and with screens and the way that the world is turning, I think kids are exposed to all sorts of things before they even have a chance. But definitely protecting like the elementary school kids, just allowing for innocence to exist as long as it can in our modern world, which is a difficult thing as it is. But yeah, I think it's something that, sexuality, I really started exploring when I got
So back to
into
your story.
college.
Yeah, back to your story where you were, you had this experiment, where you kissed a guy and you're like, okay, and then you're trying to figure yourself out, and what happens from there?
It was super confusing, and what I've since been able to do is find this frame of a balance of masculine and feminine energies in all of us, where we all have our unique percentage and combination, whatever that is. I'm a genetic man. I have feminine energy in me, which allows me to feel. And for me, what I've found is it's literally the gateway to the creative. And feminine energy is opposite masculine energy, and that masculine is penetrative. It's added, it's forceful. Whereas feminine energy is receiving, and it's surrender, and it's releasing of control, which for many masculine men is the most difficult thing they could ever imagine. To release control, and to deep Eastern philosophy, as far as that goes, to release the illusion that control can never be had whatsoever. So these are all things I've picked up along the way. But in my early 20s, I had no reference point for this. So I thought if I have emotions, I'm getting these feedback from my teammates, I must be gay. And you can imagine what it would be like to be in that environment, not knowing and not having, like I had to go out I was in LA.
So to start, if I go back, and I don't mean to interrupt you again, but I'm trying to get my own bearings here. So if to help inform, so when you say not knowing, so let's go back to childhood. And I know that you're half Jewish, half white. Is your dad's white?
I'd say Jew-ish is what I.
Your mom's Jewish, and your dad is.
Dad was Catholic growing up.
Catholic, but is he European, German Irish mix probably or something like that?
He's Polish primarily.
Polish. Okay, there you go. So Germanic. Okay, so
your
dad's white, mom's Jewish.
White parents, mom's Jewish.
What's the home life like as a child? Is it religious? Is there any religion?
Super religious. I grew up Jewish.
Okay, so you went to Hebrew school.
Got bar mitzvahed, went to Israel, like did the thing, got confirmed, went to Jewish summer camp.
Got it.
I was deep in the Jewish community as a child. And throughout my explorations, my meditations, my visiting other cultures, I identify much less with any organized religion than I ever have.
Got it.
And am drawn to whatever concept of oneness, togetherness, and sameness that any of us want to feel drawn to, be it the Tao or Buddhism or Hinduism or other forms of non-dogmatic religion, which all religion kind of is dogmatic in claiming an ultimate truth. But over my searches, I've kind of formulated my own view that everything is God. And
amen to that.
And every atom is God, and every particle and frequency vibration is God, and thus I am God, and thus you are God, and thus we are all God. And so this less of the separation game, as I've come to see it,
Yeah.
that any of us are separate in any way, shape, or form, and more of the remembrance game of getting past all of the conditioning and all the generational trauma, and like seeing that we're really all a part of this and intimately connected to it. So growing up, it was Judaism, Judaism, Judaism. I remember I dated a non-Christian girl in 7th grade, and my grandmother cried.
What do you mean non-Christian?
Excuse me, non-Jewish
Okay,
girl.
non-Jewish. Okay,
Yeah, she was
got you,
non-Jewish.
got you.
And she cried, and I didn't understand why
What
she
was
was
your
crying.
dad? So wait, so your dad was he religious too? Was he Christian? He was Catholic.
He converted
to Judaism.
To Judaism to marry my mom because my mom's parents were
Orthodox.
Were not Orthodox, but very religious.
Reformed Judaism.
Conservative
Reformed Judaism.
Conservative. They went to Bethel in St. Louis Park.
Yeah, there you go.
And
as an aside, again, you got to understand that as far as the Jewish community goes, Hopkins, St. Louis Park, and Edina have the biggest concentration of Jewish people in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And probably one of the more influential, well, definitely corporate Jewish community, but one of the more influential religious Jewish communities as well nationwide. Like Professor Penn told us the other day, the equivalent to the Minister Louis Farrakhan's of the world in the Jewish community, religious Orthodox Jewish community, lives right in St. Paul, one of the rabbis. So very big Jewish community here in the state of Minnesota, and specifically in our neighborhood, in the Hopkins, St. Louis Park neighborhood. So that's where, so your dad converted to Judaism.
Dad converted. My mom's parents were so religious, and they pushed that on their kids that they had 3 kids, and all of them, my dad ended up converting, but my mom's 2 brothers ended up marrying non-Jews. One of them married a German woman whose father was an SS officer.
Whoa.
And so
that didn't go over well at the dinner table.
It didn't go over well. And interestingly enough, at the wedding, my grandfather, my mom's dad, fought in the war. And so before the wedding happened, my grandfather and this man who was, it would be my aunt's father, who was the SS officer, they met in a room and they came out crying.
Wow.
And they had that bond because he shared that in Nazi Germany, you didn't have a choice of whether or not you were going to fight for the Nazis or not. Like, if you were a citizen, they were either going to pull you and bring you to the camps if you resisted them, or you were fighting for them. And so it's just interesting what religion does to people. And I always felt really at home in the Jewish community as a child. And as I grew and expanded my boundaries and lived in LA and experienced different cultures, I didn't want to be bound by just one. I wanted to take the good from all. And so I went to Buddhist things. I went to kirtans. I went to different chantings and meditation places. I went to Scientology just to see what it was about.
What they were talking about?
And like, I wouldn't recommend going to Scientology, but I went because every religion has a juice, secret sauce, whatever it is. And I think they're all trying to get at this core of love, unity thing. And it just becomes over the years dogmatic and riddled with like bureaucracy and money.
Yeah.
When like pure religion is like
definitely true of the Christian faith and of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Not that I'm advocating Catholicism for you, just on the record.
Yeah.
I think by the end you'll become a Catholic, but we'll see. Catholic Church has a lot of corruption as well, but
I'll go to church with you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you're saying, because it's definitely true. There's a lot of bureaucratic corruption throughout most religious institutions, certainly here in America, but throughout the world as well.
I was like thinking about Jesus if he came back and he saw that the church was asking for 10% of people's income, what he might think of that.
Well, I mean, I think that'd be one of the first things he would have a problem with. Let's say from the scripture, it would appear that he had a particular animosity for grifters in the temple.
Flipping tables.
Tables, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So
Sorry.
I think a lot of my life has been based around challenging that which I was given as absolute. And beyond God for me, and God being the oneness, everything's on the chopping block. Nothing that I've found is an absolute. And the highest philosophy I've found in the Tao and other Eastern scriptures says much of the same. And there's this like letting go of the need to know or need to be right that allows for inner peace to actually start to formulate. And it's this, I don't need to know. It's not important. And God's wisdom is so far beyond me that, like, what am I trying to figure out as in like this human biological form to try and say that I could ever know? And it's been much more peaceful giving that up and just knowing that it's in God's hands and I can just live my life.
Slide back this way for me just a little bit. There you go.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this. So after you're in college, so you go back to Harvard.
Oh yeah. So
for
here
graduate
here
school.
comes the good part. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the good part. I know we're getting the good part. So you go back to Harvard after the University of Minnesota. So now you're doing grad school.
No, still undergrad.
Oh, still undergrad.
Yeah, I did
Okay.
6 years of undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So after all my eligibility is
So
done,
are you on scholarship or you're
Nope.
paying?
Nope. My parents.
Oh, your
God
parents
bless
are
them.
paying for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
God bless
At
them.
Harvard.
At Harvard.
Holy
yeah.
shit.
Yeah, and they had my back the whole time, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's big time.
Yeah, so I went back, and as I'm going through and having this second culture shock, because I kind of accustomed myself to like the life of a college basketball player, and like when you're a college basketball player, the world's kind of at your fingertips. There's women who throw themselves at you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the way it goes, and it's not. It was all consensual. I never had any like run-ins or any shady things like that, but it's a bit over the top. Even it's a bit.
Explain it for the guys. Move a little bit to this way again.
Yeah,
Slide this way just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more. A little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There
Yeah.
you go. Perfect.
So it's as a college basketball player, you have access to have as much sexual encounters as you want.
Well, can I just jump in here one moment?
Yeah.
I think it's hard for people who haven't lived it to understand it. The level, and I don't know. We went to school. So you're about 7 years older than me, so probably things changed quick in that 20-year period, right?
Mhm.
From the 90s to the mid 20s, 2010s, let's call it. But I'll share a story, my own story. I had 4 children by 3 women,
Mhm.
all from between 17 and 21. So my kids are 15, 14, 12, and 11,
Mhm.
right? 2 boys, 2 girls. Beautiful, all smart, all healthy, a blessing. And I think we have the dangers of a population collapse, and I think our sexual culture is aiding to the slow collapse of Western population, and a lot of it stems from the church, a lot of other things as well, probably what we're eating. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of people who try and shame me for that even and say, well, that's super promiscuous. And I'm like, yeah, if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't do it that way for sure. But
Right.
you can't even really betray your former self in that way without betraying the blessing of having those children, right?
Totally.
So, I mean, it's like, how can I say I wouldn't do it the same? That's to renounce my 4 beautiful children, and every child has God's fingerprints. So it's like, well,
God
I guess I
bless.
don't regret that I had those children. I regret the circumstances with which they happened. But if they didn't happen that way, would it even have happened? So you get a weird game playing in there. Point being is, and this is totally unrelated to my kids, but I saw a sexual culture in college that most people would only find in the darkest corners of the internet. I mean, it really is the way that it's depicted in the darkest corners of the internet.
Everything you can imagine available just by saying you want it. And I'm not sharing this because I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I don't have any children to show from that region of my life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about forgiveness that as a younger man, I didn't know any better. I was presented with the opportunity to be with a number of beautiful women, and I did. And it's okay. I was 21, 22 years old, and once again, not proud of it. It's simply the culture, and I'm speaking to it because the shift from the University of Minnesota back to Harvard was significant for me because I had accustomed myself to being able to sleep with anyone I wanted.
Yeah.
And back at Harvard, there was more of a genteel sort of attitude, and I don't want to say like more self-respect, but not less of that like
Drunken bar culture.
drunken bar, girly hoo-ha culture, and more of like, who am I going to spend my life with? sort of atmosphere going on.
So you at the Ivy League, people were more, there was more courtship. There was more
courtship,
adult level type courtship, like
it
or more strategic mating.
Strategic mating's a good way to put it.
Okay, yeah. In where we were slumming around over, no offense to the U of M. Okay, we love the Gophers, we love the U of M. It's a different culture.
It's a different culture.
Size university. I mean, the University of Minnesota is one of the biggest campuses in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Most Big Ten schools are in that top 10. That's why I call it Big Ten. And it has a very, as to where New York City has a very metropolitan culture, so due to big campuses. They're like super cities, and they have a super city sort of interaction among students.
With the maturity of 18-year-olds.
Worse, probably younger.
Right.
I'd say the people who are going to Harvard, if you get accepted into Harvard, you probably had, and I don't, because I'm skeptical of people come from the Ivy League, but I think the problem with the people who come from the Ivy League comes from when they're at the Ivy League, not how they came to the Ivy League, because it does take a certain level of discipline to be able to get accepted into a Harvard.
Totally.
Especially as a student with no scholarship, no sports.
There's also a lot of nepotism that happens.
True.
There's a lot of family tradition and values that come into the Ivy Leagues.
But you still got to get those scores, though. I mean, if
you
you're
do
not
have to get the
getting
scores,
A's,
and if your entire life being brought up, you're being coached and taught to get those scores,
easier,
you're going to get those scores.
You're going to get them.
Yeah, and I don't hold any angst towards people from the Ivy League. I do wish that some of our really intelligent members of our country would devote their lives to more worthwhile causes.
Yeah.
Instead of purely chasing money and power.
Amen, sir.
And that's a hard thing to get away from. Picture yourself in a family that has some large corporation of 4 generations, and you can step into the position just by saying yes and earning $25 million a year.
United Healthcare Group, you get $65 million a year as a CEO. $65 million.
And like let down your entire family and like break off so that you can be a hippie.
Come on,
and
I
go
have
to the
no
woods.
problem with people getting $65 million a year. I want to make that clear. I don't have a problem with you earning $65 million a year. I'm just saying it has a way of motivating you to think about the world a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was one of the few people that I was aware of at Harvard who was taking psychedelics during my undergrad. And so for me, as a lot of people were chasing what job I'm going to get or what hedge fund I'm going to be a part of, my question was always, what is God? Why are we here? What's the point? Like, is it really money? Is that really it? And like in my book, I share a number of like, I gave up all of my material possessions at one point because I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me how all of life was just accumulating things to have more things than other people. And so I was like, well, maybe if I give away all of my things,
you'll find it.
Something will come.
Yeah.
And it did. And I saw through it. And material things are great. And like we should have them and we should celebrate them and be thankful for them. But the material things are not the things that make life. It's the relationships. It's how we hold ourselves. It's the peace, the love that we share with each other. The meaningful moments, the elevated experiences, the closeness and the vibratory essence of things is what I've found is much more meaningful than any gift or any car or house or whatever that may be. And so it's kind of been my question all along is like, what is God? Like, what is this? What are we doing here? What is the purpose? So back to the story. So I go back to Harvard. There's a huge culture shock. I have to shift again. Women who I was friends with are looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, what's like, who is this guy? What happened to like the sweet Zach we knew before? Like all this. And
spend some time in the dog pound.
And
That's what happened to him.
I'm trying to make sense of all of it and be like, oh, and I got this question in my head, like, well, maybe I'm gay and I don't know. And I ended up doing this. I was like, well, I just need to do something different. So I did a fashion show my senior year. It was called Eleganza. I was dating this beautiful woman who became a brain surgeon afterwards, and like life was good and all these things. And my parents came out for the show they were coming to, and right before the show, I took some Adderall, which is meth, basically.
Essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amphetamine. And so I took this, and all of the thoughts that I'd been repressing around gayness and everything else just came to like this head inside of me. And
was this
like,
the first time you took Adderall?
It wasn't the first time,
Okay.
but I'd taken a considerable amount of it.
This time.
Yeah, it was about 50 milligrams.
Oh, shit.
Which was a good amount. That's
Yes.
more than any normal dose.
Yeah.
Wasn't a smart thing on my part, but I did it. And
Why were you taking it? Just to focus for the show? Was it more of a...
so I had actually gotten myself Adderall. I'd gone into the health services because studying for me, taking Adderall was effortless. I could pop a pill and I could study for 6 hours, cram for a test, spew it out, get an A, forget all of it the next day.
Okay.
So it was a study drug. Not proud of that either, but at the time,
Is what it is. A lot of people do it.
yeah, a lot of people do
Still.
it to get through things.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of learning and growing as opposed to memorizing and regurgitating is also a huge shift that I've made in my life. But the time I took Adderall before this show, and I remember all the thoughts just churning through my head. Am I not? Like, what's going on? And then just this thought that whether I am or I'm not, I'm tired of being scared of it. And so I decided that it would be a good idea to announce that I was gay at the fashion show in front of my parents and 3,000 people and my girlfriend who walked out on stage with me at the time. And I did. I stopped the whole show. I made everyone stop. I stopped the music. I stopped the performers. I stopped everyone. And I went out to the end of the stage and I said, this is a long time coming, but I'm gay. Now let's get this party started. And I walked off stage.
Okay.
And some people heard me and some people didn't. And there was like a little applause and there was little like, what did he say? And like this sort of thing. And my parents were like, what? And I walked off stage and my girlfriend's like, how can you be gay if we had sex this morning? And I was like, I got some questions. I was like, I got to explore some things. And at the time, she actually chose to stay with me while I explored, which was interesting.
Huh.
My dad said to me, we went out to dinner afterwards and he said, if you're gay, I'm gay. And
I think he ended up being right in this in this equation. But
well, I pictured him for a second, in like some drag outfit, and
that was
amazing.
a good father's way of saying, "Hey, maybe the Adderall got to you. I don't know if you're as gay as you think."
Might have been the drugs.
Might have been the drugs.
So I played the cart before the horse. I didn't do my due diligence before announcing it, and
That's hilarious. What's the due diligence on being gay?
The due diligence is to experiment and to
Do I
find it
actually
out.
like guys?
Do I actually like
Right.
guys? In all of my sexual experimentation with men, I've never once been turned on
Been attracted to a man.
by them, like sexually, which is an interesting and was even more confusing for me because I was like, then why do I have this thing? And what it came down to was like, I didn't know how to love men.
Mm.
I was so competitive as a young man that I thought I had to kill all other men and like kill them energetically, like be better than them, like come out on top, whatever it was. And I didn't have it in me to just soften and be kind around
So
them.
you can flesh. So wait, this is such a fucking interesting story, man.
Mm.
That's why I had you on there. But I was reading a book. I'm like, this dude is getting to something. So you were conflating competition and the visceral sort of man way of dominating one another. You were conflating that with like almost like an inability to even have basic friendships with men that weren't romantic or sexual. So you
Basic
went-
friendships or just love, to be able to love men.
Yeah.
As men, non-sexual, just love. Like I couldn't do it.
Yeah, like a good friend, like best friend. Hey man,
Like
I
you love
you,
your
man.
friend.
Yeah,
You're like, what's up? I love you.
you
I couldn't do it.
you didn't know that.
I didn't know
It
it.
was
It wasn't
either
in
kill
my
'em,
repertoire.
Kill them or ignore them.
Or-
They
or
don't
be
exist.
done with 'em.
Yeah,
And like that combined with the cultural pause and stop thing, I was just like, well, I got to find out what this is. I don't know what it is, but like, here we go. Here's my announcement. And it confused a lot of people. I got a ton of interview requests afterwards because at the time there were no professional athletes who had come out of the closet. Jason Collins hadn't come out.
it was way later.
Michael Sam hadn't gone. Nobody had done it. And I was a collegiate athlete, but it was in the Big Ten
Right.
that I'd played in. And afterwards I got, I actually had 2 tryouts. I had a tryout with the Bears and with the Vikings to be a tight end after I hadn't played for like 5 years. So I had interview requests from every magazine you can imagine. And I didn't know what I was. So I was like, I put them all off except for one. I did one interview with like a beat writer at the University of Minnesota. And because I was confused, I didn't know what to say yet. And so it was a time for me where I was like, I need to explore, I need to find it out. And I didn't really get my answer of like the balance of masculine, feminine energy until I was in Los Angeles and interacted with people, women who had masculine energies, men who had feminine energies, what the creative was and how that worked. My ability to feel and to emote and to love men and it not to have to be a sexual thing.
Yeah.
And it was just, I didn't have context for these things as a kid.
So you go to, so now you move to LA.
Mm.
So you're at Harvard. You announced at the fashion show, and you were in this fashion show. It wasn't like when you put on. You were
No, I was in it.
You were modeling.
One of the models. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And so when you say girlfriend comes out on stage with you, you didn't pre-warn her.
No.
She's just
she was not aware.
Yeah. You just kind of sprung it on her too.
I'm sorry, Kirsten.
She supports you. Now you graduate, right? You graduate from Harvard.
Graduate, yeah.
And you decide to move to LA.
So
interest in Hollywood, fashion, entertainment, the whole deal.
I took a year and a half in Minneapolis and I applied to law school.
Okay.
Because I thought that would be a good idea.
It's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. And then after working in a law firm for a year and a half at Skolnick and Schiff downtown, I realized that
lawyers are assholes.
Well, they were really kind. I really liked the experience.
Not these lawyers, but
no, these
let's
lawyers
say
were great.
The field of law is one of the canker sores in our great country. And I know a lot of good lawyers, but the legal system is all fucked up.
The energy of arguing as a career was not something that interested me.
Got it.
And I remember I was writing a screenplay actually in the office at one point, and a friend, David Furzetzer, had peeked his head around the cubicle, of which I could touch both sides of, and he goes, "Hey Zach, what you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm writing a screenplay." And he goes, "Oh, why are you here?" And it was that phrase that did it for me. Like, why are you here if you're writing a screenplay? And I ended up quitting the job 2 weeks later, breaking up with my girlfriend and moving out to Los Angeles.
So is the breakup because of the move and the shift in career pursuit, or are there already problems?
It was just one of those okay.
So it's one of those inflection points where it's
everything's
like,
got to move.
All right, I got to change this.
Yeah, it's got to stop.
Okay.
So stopped that, moved out to LA.
Yep.
And I didn't know what was out there. People said, "What are you doing in that league? Do you want to go be famous? What's the thing?" And I was like, I think I'm going to get me, find out what it is, find out what this missing part is. And I did everything. I acted. I was in a number of short films and commercials, and I wrote. I did screenplays. I was in bands. I went to every religion I could find, every experience, every emotional intelligence training. I was just like, hit me, like, let me unfurl my conditioning, whatever trauma I have, whatever blocks I have, to just be present and at peace with myself.
Mm.
And I spent 12 years out there, and I still have some things in me, it's a forever journey.
We all do.
And I've made considerable shifts since I was 8. You didn't really know me at 18, but I was kind of a dick. I was kind of a bully, kind of like a mean person. I carried a lot of anger and didn't know how to be kind with myself or with other people. And through my journeys, I've found softness, I've found gentleness, I've found love, I've found compassion, forgiveness, and all these morals and ethics that I was never given as a child. I never had the context for it. So I was able to unfurl, I was able to heal, I was able to learn myself through all the different modalities of art. And the one that shifted the most and that I'm now most passionate about is improvisational music, which is creating music here and now with whatever is. Because that for me is the most creative place that we can exist and the most truthful place, because when we're freestyling, when we're just letting things out, you can't lie. There's the filter's not there.
Profound point. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just have jazz.
Amen.
You just have to let it go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've found a bunch of my answers, which has felt really good coming from a confusing place. And I share my story because I think a lot of young men, when I came out and told everyone I was gay, more athletes came to me and shared with me and were like, "Bro, me too, but I can't tell anyone, they'll kill me." Or "Oh, I've had this for years." And I was like, "Okay, I don't really know yet, but thank you for sharing." People from
dude, I don't even really know if I'm gay, but all right, dude, thanks for sharing.
I'm with you. Stay with it, But it was a trip because there's a lot of people who I think feel the same pressure in being men, that they're not allowed to feel, that they're not allowed to just be present and have their own experience of things.
Okay, so you go out to L.A. How do you realize that you're not gay?
You experiment.
Right, but I mean, was there a point? Was there a point in the story where you're like, okay, I've been out here, I've visited all the different religions, I've done all the different career things, I've dabbled in this, dabbled in that. I'm actually not gay. What it was X.
It was, little pieces at a time adding to the story. The more creative things I did, the more I allowed my feminine to feel comfortable, the feminine inside of me to feel comfortable.
So as a question, how do you feel about so as an example, there are all these people who, now two-spirit has become a term that's used to identify, non-binary LGBTQ people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always strange to me because what they use to describe identity, gender identity, are often things that they would also say shouldn't describe gender identity. For example, like you're saying, well, I felt like these things were feminine, but are they even really feminine? I mean, is it feminine to like fashion? Is it feminine to there are some things that we would definitely describe as feminine, maybe like painting your nails. Every little girl wants to paint her nails with sparkly, glitter polish. But is listening to, I don't know, Janis Joplin, is that feminine? Does that make you feminine? Is having an affinity for, I don't know, sewing? Because we do this thing where we conflate what's feminine, what's masculine, and then you get people who say, well, I like a lot of feminine things, so I must be a woman. And that's where things I've always thought were strange, tricky, complex, complicated, maybe less complicated than we make it. But it is complicated because it's like, well, number one, you're not a woman. If you're a man and you like to play the guitar, or you like to sing in a band, or you like the arts, or you like to write plays, or you like to act in theater, that's not really feminine. I mean, that's just
it's creative.
Just creative. Yeah, cool shit to do.
Which is a lot of feminine energy. And it's once again,
so you think
these are archetypes.
You think the creative is more feminine?
In my experience, yes. And
but how do you reconcile people like this? Like, was Beethoven feminine?
Probably.
Maybe you're probably right.
Had an essence of it. Doesn't mean he wasn't a man. Doesn't mean he wasn't masculine. Doesn't mean anything like that. Just meant he has access to his feminine energy.
So you associate feminine with the creative,
yes,
and masculine with the what?
The masculine is much more of like the action to like create and do, and like it's that penetrative added energy.
Industriousness, I think, is what they call it in psychology.
You can call it industriousness, the doing.
Yeah.
Whereas the feminine is much more receiving, allowing, and like my ability to listen and just listen feels very feminine. And it's through really focused listening and meditation that I get to feel God. It's not through my masculine, like, gotta get it, do it, da da da. It's through my release, through my surrender, through my just allowance that I experience the essence of all things. And that feels really feminine to me. And whatever that is for anyone else is perfect for them.
Yeah.
But it once again, it gets back to that releasing of control thing, which I think the masculine does carry a control essence with it. And I'm not here to like tear down the patriarchy or like hate on men or any shit like that.
Right.
I'm not about that.
It's just an honest observation about men. We like control.
We like control. We like being in control. We like knowing what's going on.
In the Christian faith, it's seen as a part of what they call the natural order, that man will, that man's affinity for control is ordained by God in some sense, because we are the patriarchs of our tribe, of our little tribe, of our family unit. So I mean,
it makes sense in a tribal way,
for sure,
when you're trying to survive,
right,
to be in control of your environment.
But when you're in a post-Enlightenment society where you don't have to war and you don't go hunt for your own food and you don't have to worry about moving from one harsh, cold climate to higher ground to
That's
stay
right.
away from predators.
Yeah.
Man's intellectual creativity, blossoms and is curious and flourishes. And this is a lot of how you get men who would have had to, learn how to use a spear and start their own fire 500 years ago. Now he's making music. I mean, now he's, writing symphonies.
Yeah.
Or he's wrestling with intellectual ideas and he's advancing language or culture as to where before is like, dude, what are you talking? Shut up, dude.
There's a line out there.
Don't talk to me about what you
family safe.
think, dude.
Yeah.
There's a line. This saber tooth is going to eat my ass. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. And it's either right then, right now, take care of your tribe or else everyone's dead. Whereas, like you're saying, I think the world's experiencing an awakening. And it's an awakening that, like, we have the ability to create safety for everyone. And we don't, because there's still greedy governments and people and individuals who desire more control, more power, more influence, more resources than everyone else.
No.
I have this intuitive hit that AI is going to help reevaluate everything and make the world so it is sustainable for everyone. Just basic, like roof over our head, plumbing, a bed to sleep on, and food.
Yeah, baseline will get better.
For the baseline will get better instead of this, like, and capitalism, I have no inherent qualms with like people making what they want to make. But what it does create is this huge gap between the have and the have-nots.
No doubt.
We talked about this when we went out to lunch. Like, COVID created the largest wealth transfer in human history.
Talk about COVID. Talk about what COVID did to you.
COVID was interesting. I was in LA at the time, and I was part of a startup called We Deepen, and we were doing transformational events, which were all sober, in-person events, from ecstatic dance to dating and meditating to my flow improvisational musical ceremonies, to Akashic Records, anything that allowed people to have a cultural experience with other people and to walk away from it with some sort of growth or some sort of knowledge, something that they hadn't had before. And we were cruising. We were in our second round investor meetings, and it was exciting because it felt like we were shifting culture away from this bar, get drunk, go out and act a fool sort of culture, and more into like, let's connect with each other. Let's slow down. Let's learn about ourselves. And it was a really exciting time. We're in the old Death Row Records label building in Los Angeles. And so we had some of that like Tupac energy in the space. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we couldn't meet up anymore. And so for me, it was really difficult because it felt like this startup was something that was really going to be a world changer. It was going to be something that was going to allow people to know themselves instead of, existing in this culture of screaming at televisions. And that's the other interesting thing with like sports is that I think everything is a cult when it comes down to it. And sports is one of the biggest cults. And, it has its rituals of like taking Sunday to scream at a television, drink beer, and have our cathartic purge by screaming at men in tights to put pigskin leather over a goal line more than the other that makes one civilization population feel better than the other, even though none of the athletes are from that space or that time. And so cults are this fascinating thing that I've been in and out of a number of them. And all it really is a group of people with a shared ethos who are in on something and they want to live a certain way together.
Yeah.
Religions are all cults. Sports are all cults. Cultures, right? And cults get a bad rap because like Jim Jones and the people who like decided to kill themselves, which like that was their shared ethos, whatever. But I kind of want to create like a world cult, like a world culture, like based in love. And this startup felt like a great first step to that, of just changing nightly events so that people could show up and connect with each other and grow a little bit. And then COVID hit, and I didn't buy anything in COVID. Nothing. Zero. I'd seen too many propaganda things. I'd read Propaganda, the book. I had seen Freud, and it was his nephew who wrote the book Propaganda. Edward Bernays is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote the book on like how to control the masses and the minds of the population. And it was too textbook for me, all of it. I chose not to get vaxxed. Anyone who did, like, everyone make their own choice, and I was all about that. But what it felt like was there was this, if you chose not to, you were suddenly the enemy and suddenly like a second class citizen. And I was out in LA, like, I don't know what it's like to be black. I'm not black, but I suddenly knew what it was like to feel discriminated against. And like, I couldn't go to restaurants and I couldn't go to grocery stores and I couldn't go out of my house for a little bit. And I was like, this is nuts. They were asking for papers. And me, as like growing up as a Jew, I learned about the Holocaust.
Right.
I was listening to Holocaust survivors saying once they ask for your papers, it's too late. And they were asking for papers. So like we were really on the cusp. There were people on nightly, talk shows saying like it's time that we take all the unvaccinated and like
lock them in their homes,
put them in a place.
Right.
And I was like, this is not good.
That was fucking crazy.
Right up to the edge of it. So COVID kind of made me not want to participate anymore. It really got me to a place, like I went on a national parks tour and I just went out into nature and took a bunch of mushrooms and refound my peace and did all the nature things I'd ever wanted to do by myself and met up with friends and other people. But I was just tired of like the societal thing. I felt like my social medias had been shadow banned. Anything I tried to share with like actual information and studies were immediately like taken down or removed.
So you were one of these what they call anti-vaxxer dangerous social media accounts. You were suspended from social media.
I got suspended. I got shadow banned. All of it. So I just kind of gave up. I kind of was like,
what were you saying?
Honestly, I thought I was coming from a very like base perspective.
Okay.
I was like sharing numbers that were coming out of China versus here and who was being infected versus who died. And then the whole PCR test and like the availability, the creator of the PCR test saying it can't actually detect anything. And like him being buried and like just all the parts. I was like, no. And
Zach's going red pilled right now. He's giving us the black pill. The buried lead in this whole story is
what I think it comes down to at the end is that governments for all of history have attempted to control the minds of their populations.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to control people when you do that. And it got me thinking about our Constitution. And I've never been about guns my entire life. I don't like violence. I don't like war. I've never punched anyone my entire life. I don't want to. And suddenly during COVID, they couldn't do vaccine mandates in Texas because Texans have like 350 million guns.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I realized that the Second Amendment is to protect us from our government. And I was like, oh, that's really smart of our founding fathers. I don't like guns, but that's really smart. And I think people are innocent in that they want to trust that their government has their best well-being in mind. And I just don't think they do. And so like people aren't wrong in like trying to trust and do the best, but I think they misplace their faith. And instead of putting it in God and themselves and their intuition and their intelligence, they put it into some figurehead who can tell them whatever they want and then be led to whatever place, cattle are led to.
Welcome to the nationalist populist movement, my friend. Also known as the MAGA movement, with some variation in between. We're having a little bit of a throwdown right now about Israel and foreign policy and a bunch of other things. It's got to happen. It happens in every movement. It happens in every cult. It happens in every era and every time period. But yeah, what you're describing is what our founding fathers intended it to be. I think they laid it out pretty well in the Constitution. It's like I always say, American citizenship is founded on the idea of a nation of shopkeepers, independent business owners, and agrarian farmers, rugged individualists. A man has everything he needs on his belt, and he can go through the world and be everything he needs to be with not much more than the stuff that he carries around on his belt. That used to be the way of things. The more industrialized we get, and this is why I would push back about artificial intelligence, only in that I agree, the baseline will get better. The danger is it becomes even more easy to control the masses when you don't really know what's real or not anymore. I mean, that's right out of the Matrix story arc, right? It's like he lived a whole life. He was fucking 30 years old, and
Yeah.
he had this intuition that something seemed off.
Mm.
But for the most part of his life, he just kind of accepted that a steak is a steak, a building is a building, a car is a car, gasoline is gasoline, and life is life. He had no other frame of reference because he's been living in a simulator since birth. I mean,
Mhm.
they didn't even really tell you in the movie who the parents were. I think the buried lead is that these babies that they grow from a baby into a full grown adult were probably made in a lab.
Synthesized.
So they were synthetic. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. But I like your version. I mean, I like your way better, and I get the going into nature. I went up to the North Shore about a month back,
Mhm.
doing a political event, and I just stood on the on the rocks on the edge of the lake, Lake Superior. And in that moment, I thought I posted it. I thought to myself, it saddens me that there are so many people, and I meant black people more or less, because black people tend to live in the cities and don't venture out to places like that, just demographically. But you could say city people as well, because there are a lot of city people who don't also, although more white people who live in the city are aware of that kind of thing and exposed to that kind of thing than your black citizens. But I just thought of how many young black men would be born and meet an early demise before ever witnessing nature like that, and what it does to ground you. In the moment, I was just grateful, like, man, here I am again. I know some 15, 14, 13, now even younger than that, young kids who are losing their life to gun violence and just pure nonsense. And they'll never get to sit on the rocks of a great lake
Mm.
and just listen to the water. Just, you know what I mean? And that just hit me. So I know how the nature part of your journey is like, that's just necessary, especially when you come out of the chaos of, like, for me, and right now it's politics. It's like coming out of the chaos of this political back and forth, and nobody can really agree. As people talk in circles past each other. Nobody really wants to just say it like it is.
Mm.
Like, everybody has their own little niche and a little caveat to their opinion. It makes it impossible to come to a resolution. And it was just like, listen to the water. So important. So important.
Be like water.
Be like water. Amen. Bruce Lee was a prophet in his own right. But so what do you now post COVID in Minnesota, living in Minnesota, you got the book coming in, by the way, for those who coming in, ZachPuchtel.com, also available on Amazon. Coming in. It's a great read, introspective read, a young man's journey, an athlete. Um, how do you view the world now? I mean, what do you think of when you are watching the politics unfold today? I mean, it's you come from a Minnesota town that is very liberal, let's say,
Mhm.
especially here in the western suburbs, very liberal. A Jewish community even that's pretty liberal as far as on the Jewish spectrum of things, right? I mean,
Definitely.
you got more far right conservative Orthodox Jews, and then you got your Reformed, metropolitan, still believe in the culture and Judaism, but not still vote Democrat, vote liberal.
Mhm.
Uh, it's interesting. You made a point about growing up, hearing about, being taught about the Holocaust and getting your papers and being carted off and, that whole dynamic. Why do you think so many Jewish Americans were willing to get vaccinated? If you think that that's true.
That's a really good question. Once again, I think it's a misplaced of trust. Like, for example, my uncle was an ER doc for years. And so obviously we didn't see eye to eye during the pandemic. And he believed everything that was coming from mainstream science, whereas I was seeing a new cult being formed called scientism, which
Mhm.
was believe everything you're told without challenging it. And I believe in science. I believe in the scientific method, which is to test and to retest and to retest and have independent researchers retest and have everything put to question all the time. That to me feels like science. When suddenly there was a settled science and an absolute, I think there's sometimes because there are many Jews that have become doctors and otherwise, that there are people in the family that just look to them as experts and don't challenge or question anything they say. And they're not wrong for it because they think that's trustworthy. And I would just look to the fact that, like, during all of COVID, there was never one news article or otherwise that pointed to how we could increase our immune system, how we could become healthier, how seeing the sun is beneficial to our well-being, how taking zinc or other
Vitamin D.
vitamins and
Mhm.
minerals could vastly improve our ability to fight off COVID. And it just became this like fear propaganda thing where people were scared to think differently, and it really separated. I think a little bit that we went through the apocalypse during COVID. That the apocalypse is like the great revealing, and everyone was revealed for exactly who we are, whether we think for ourselves or whether we can't. And a lot of people have just learned to mindlessly trust other people's opinions when it comes to things, as though research papers are beyond our comprehension, because they're not. They make it actually really simple to find out the findings and the
Right.
conclusions of any research paper. And people would be like, "Oh, what are you, a scientist?" I'm like, "No, but I can read and I can understand and I can like look at information."
I read in English and in Hebrew. I can read
That's
pretty
right.
well.
And I can decipher and let my own mind. And that's what being a free thinking individual is. So,
Right.
like, I think a lot of times when we get ingrained in these cults, with Judaism, a lot of it is centered around academia, and around that is like absolutist ideas and thoughts around health and science and otherwise. And
Do you think because of the the professional lean of the American Jewish community that it does lean so heavily toward lawyers and doctors as some of the most prestigious occupations you can hold, that there's been a shift of, like you said, trust or uh, uh, you know credential trust in that class of people versus where the Jewish community maybe used to have more trust in the rabbi and other cultural leaders in the community?
Hmm, yeah, it's a good question.
Because there does seem to be a lot of, I mean, not the fact that Dr. Fauci is Jewish, but like you said, and I think it's important to talk because there is a conversation right now happening without being anti-Semitic. There's a black question, there's a white question, there's an American question, there's a big question right now about Jewish identity, Judaism, Israel, foreign policy, and kind of this conversation that you can't, again, another conversation you can't really talk about. I said the other day, and I told you when we were at lunch, even in the conservative movement, and your conservative movement tends to lean more pro-Israel than the liberal side, which is unique. I mean, a unique dynamic because we're kind of the side that's pushed against traditional narratives.
Mm.
And I mean, I can talk about the black community all day long on conservative media. I can't even say there's a Jewish community. Seriously. No, seriously. I said there was a Jewish lobby, and they were like, "You're anti-Semitic." I go, "Huh? What do you mean? Of course there's a
Well,
Jewish
first of all,
lobby."
anti-Semitic doesn't make sense as a phrase. I know what it means.
Yeah.
But to be anti-Semite Semites are Middle Eastern people. And that's just that phrase has so much angst and energy behind it that once you're labeled that, all of a sudden you hate Jews. And
I'm sitting here with you. I got mad love for you. I actually sing your praises as a model for other young men. Real anti-Semites don't do that.
I appreciate
A
that.
real anti-Semite would be like, "Dude, you're Jewish. I hate you.
I think
Something's wrong with you."
everything is questionable. And I saw Candace Owens make a delineation between like chastising Jewish people and criticizing the Israeli government.
Right.
And I think every government deserves to be criticized.
Amen.
I don't care who you are. It doesn't mean you hate the people. If you criticize the U.S. government, it doesn't mean you hate Americans.
Right.
It means you know that there's corruption in politics and you'd like there not to be so much corruption.
Right.
And like there's this unspoken thing around Israel that if you criticize the government, suddenly you're anti-Semitic. And I don't think that's fair at all. And
So, but what my question is, what do you think is going on there in terms of, the trusted? So, is it your position, your theory of the case, that we have just as much an institutional cult as we do on the religious side? That institutions have become, in many ways, their own religious cults.
institutions are definitely cults. Scientism, which is the inability to question any scientific head, such as Dr. Fauci would be a cult as well.
Which one is closer to, and which one for you? All right. I mean, because in some ways, I don't want to say the curse because God's blessed us, and there's no doubt about that. But part of the trial and tribulation of being human is that we do have to pick a road, right? And we all, like I always tell people that the two emergent qualities of the human condition are angst and despair. And angst is what keeps you alive. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't get up in the morning. None of the things that we've accomplished, including surviving day to day, would be accomplished if you didn't have the emergent quality of angst deep in the human condition, right? Despair is something we all face because our time here is limited. Our time in this form is limited. Whatever you believe about the afterlife, some people believe in transfer of energy. Some people believe that all energy is recycled. Whatever it is, you're probably never going to be in this exact form again. And that's a natural driver of despair, right? So those two qualities are kind of emergent.
Is that a driver of despair?
For most people.
Okay.
Well, no, I
see how it can be.
I think for all people, actually, because, and this is where the Buddha would, the Buddhists in Eastern philosophy would reconcile this by resigning from society. They would say, well, I've resolved the despair by saying I'm no longer attached to this physical world. But even in doing so, I don't know that you ever can really see, because in my opinion, and this takes me to the outer limits of my intellectual capacity, because now I'm playing with, the God realm, right? But because we are created by God and in his image, there's a part of us that is divine. And in that part of us, we could never renounce the blessing that it is to be here in this form, in this moment. So there is a despair, there is a natural small, even if you shrink it down to the smallest grain possible through your maturity and intellectual philosophical growth, you still got to leave here. And if you have any loved ones, children, it's always going to be despairing to leave your children behind in some capacity. So I do think at bottom that despair is emergent, even if it's the smallest grain of despair left. But angst you need. If you don't have angst, you can't get up and move around, right? So it's a balancing act between angst, useful angst, and then anxiety, right? Out of control, over the top.
Where does love fit in?
Oh, love is the basis of all things.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, no, love it.
Feels like you're saying only angst is the driver, or
no, angst.
Despair is.
Well, no, I mean angst and despair are the two emergent qualities of the human condition. Love is.
I hear that.
Yeah, love is the baseline of reality, because God loves us.
Oh,
yeah, and if he didn't, we wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah.
So that's more of a fabric thing. It's like gravity. Love is like gravity. I'm talking more about how human beings operate. So, but what my question to you is, we got real deep right there. It was kind of crazy. But my question, more basic question is, if you had to pick, because we all have a road, right? I mean, it's kind of, we wake up in the morning, you got to choose. Do I stay in bed? Do I get up and go? Am I going to go right? Am I going to go left? If you had to choose, what would be more formidable, a life philosophy for somebody today, your younger, more religious, traditional Jewish teaching, or the scientism cult that has emerged post-COVID?
I choose neither. What do you mean?
If you had to pick. And I frame it like that for a reason, because while I say, I agree with you that organized religion is a problem, there's no doubt about it. But if I had to pick, and I'm a Christian, but if I had to pick between Orthodox Judaism and scientism, I'm taking Hebrew school every day of the week, because it just seems more grounded in a natural humility. Like, human beings are going to be imperfect. God told us that, right? I mean, God's kind of made it that way for a reason. So even in all the imperfections of organized religion and faith, there seems to be something especially perverse about the scientism cult, even juxtaposed to religious cults. Don't get me wrong. There's some weird religions out there, and even in my own Christian faith, there's some snake handlers out there I look at and go, whoa, that's a weird cult. But fundamentally, it's like the scientism cult seems like it's something even more sinister, and it feels like there's a justification in American culture and in Western or modern society to lean towards the scientism cult because of all the crimes and sins of organized religion.
Yeah, so I think what you're getting at is asking me which is more beneficial and also which would be more hurtful. And I see how scientism doesn't necessarily care for the well-being of the individual, whereas religions at their core, I think, are trying to allow people to connect with God.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
They're trying to.
They're trying. Even if they're failing miserably, it's in the priority list.
They have a system set up to pray to God, which is beautiful in any which way. And I that's why I love going to church. I love going to Buddhist monasteries. I love all of it. It's beautiful. Any sort of praise to God is wonderful. And I don't say there's a right or wrong because I don't know a right or wrong to it. I also think that the ability to think freely and to question things is maybe our most powerful ability as humans. To use our incredible brains to think and even furthermore to intuit and to feel into the truth of a thing. Because when someone speaks a truth, it vibrates. You can feel it. There's not, oh, I have to check this. When someone's speaking true, you can tell they're speaking true because they're not checking themselves. They're not doubling down on lies. They're not having to repeat themselves and inundate you with it multiple times, which I felt some of that energy from scientism. Whether or not religions are aware of like absolute truth of oneness, whatever that is, it's really like Einsteinian God, that like everything is interconnected intimately. Nikola Tesla said it, that as soon as science starts investigating the unseen, we're going to see more growth and knowledge than in 10 years in all of human history. And it's getting past this, like the physical is the reality, and knowing that like the universe, the God, the infinite realms of the metaphysical are the actual reality. And that we're just living this temporary physical existence. And the more religion allows people to feel into that, I feel like the more we all get to access whatever that truth looks like for us. So in that light, I'll answer your question and say, yeah, I'd do religion over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I asked that because your default when you encountered the COVID narrative was to go back to your Jewish forefathers who told the stories of the camp, and that wisdom, and that Jewish wisdom doesn't just go back to the Holocaust; it goes back to the Exodus, right? To the days of the Passover. Is like you have to leave the unleavened bread, right? I mean, that's where the tradition comes from. Leave before the bread rises. You wait till the bread rises, it's too late.
That story also assumes that the Jews built the pyramids, which, like, I like trying.
You're not buying it?
No.
You're not buying that the Hebrews were?
No, I mean, you saw the most recent discovery underneath the pyramids. Did you see it?
Fascinating.
Like the huge pillars with coils around them.
That were probably three times deeper than the pyramids themselves.
And taller than the Burj Dubai, every single one of them.
Crazy.
Like this is ancient technology that I don't have any answers for, but probably wasn't stacked up by Jews.
Could have been both.
Maybe the Jews had
been
it.
Both.
It could have been some Atlantean past culture. Like who knows?
But I do say that even in ancient Egyptian culture, there are historical accounts of the Hebrews being a second class, a subjugated class.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Hebrews built the pyramids, but I do know that there were Hebrews at the time, and that the Hebrews appear to be second class citizens or a subjugated group in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
Now
that's the question though about the Bible is like, are they stories or are they actual accounts of history?
Well, more and more. Well, I believe they're actual accounts, but first of all, another one of these tightropes you got to walk when you're a Christian. You can't say, "Hey, what about the Book of Enoch?"
Mm.
And the Book of Enoch's out there. It's floating around. A great, great young congresswoman named Anna Paula Luna down there in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. I don't pay so close attention, but she's out there, and I just saw her the other day. She's like, "Hey, look, I read the Book of Enoch 4 to 5 times. I'm a Christian,"
Hmm.
and I got to say, she's also one who's very deeply investigating these UAPs, alien UFO deals. So
Hmm.
she's part of that committee, and she's trying to head that up. And she's going, "Hey, I read this Book of Enoch, and it seems to give us a lot of answers, maybe a bridge between the mysteries of our own history, human history, and the stars and the universe, and the
Hmm.
connection religiously." Were some things taken out of the Bible? Absolutely. What things were put in? These are questions that we have to ask. Overall, is the spirit of the word um, good and aimed towards a good end? I would say so. I mean, if you really break the Bible down fundamentally, it tells the same story over and over.
Mm. I read the Bible, and growing up Jewish, we're taught that Jesus either didn't exist or he was just a school teacher, definitely not the Messiah, anything like that.
Right.
And so when I grew up, I just had no concept of Jesus. And when I started looking into other religions and reading from other masters, I realized that I had this big gap when it came to Jesus. And so I read the Bible, and I read 4 or 5 other uh, text channeled things on Jesus, the Aquarian Gospel, the Book of Enoch, like different chapters that were left out at the Council of Nicaea,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to know. And Jesus's words ring true, and they ring good.
Oh man.
And I can say that like wholeheartedly and matter of factly. And I'm happy that I've opened my heart to the entity M- Messiah of Jesus.
Amen.
And I don't claim one Messiah or otherwise, but like I said, there's an essence when someone speaks truth that it resonates past things. And when I read Jesus's words in the Bible, they resonate as true, like almost all the way through. And I'm of the faith that like he was a great master, enlightened being who knew the truth. The Aquarian Gospel is the story of Jesus's life from 13 to 33, which is like the juice of his life, right? The Bible is like he's flipping tables and now like he's getting crucified. And like, what about his 20 years of magic and healing and like all that? And the story of him is traveling the Silk Road and like meeting with the Buddhas and meeting with all these great enlightened characters of the time, and them all affirming that he is the Christ. And like, it was one of the most beautiful reads I ever, and I was like, this is a story. Like, why isn't this in the Bible?
What's going on here?
Like, tell me about this man's living life and the
Yeah.
miracles.
He's on the Silk Road, and he meets all these Eastern philosophers, right?
Mm.
Buddhists and Taoists and these Zen masters and
Magi,
Magi,
Nazarenes.
all of these other religious figures in their own respective regions, and they affirm that he's Christ. They essentially go, he's the dude. Like, this dude is the dude.
They're
He's
like,
not.
we were waiting for you.
Yeah, he's
I'm like,
not.
okay.
He's not pretending. Yeah, beautiful story. But I
Mhm.
mean, but to your point of what I was saying that there are things that have been taken out. There are things that have been put in. What we see now is that science is starting to affirm in certain places the legitimacy of it being a historical record.
Mm.
Like, for example, I saw the other day that there's always a study or a scientific finding. It's like, today we found a 38,000-year-old grasshopper in a place that we didn't think grasshoppers existed. This will change everything. I don't know. But they are saying that they believe that man can be traced back to one man, that there was an Adam. In fact, I think they ran an AI model, and AI said, I don't know if you saw this, it's really funny. There's AI was asked to put together a rendition of who the first man was,
Mm.
and it looks like Vin Diesel.
Stop.
I swear to you. I mean, that either tells you how good Vin Diesel's genes are, or
Or how off
or
AI is.
how off AI is, right? But no, I do think like they're uncovering a lot of mysteries. One of the more uh, incredible, but yet still scary ones are about the giants and the Nephilim,
Mm.
and some of these faces that you see, or what you could make out as maybe a face, in or giant footprints.
I've seen
Are these
newspaper
asteroids
articles.
or are
Yeah.
these the footprints of giants? And it's
Yeah.
like people don't even want to go there. I mean, our brain can't, besides fantasy sci-fi and what we depict in cartoons as little kids, our brains can't wrap our minds around a skyscraper tall human. Being is just walking around, stomping around the earth, like squashing us like bugs. We can't even fathom that. I have trouble fathoming it, really. I mean, I want to let my mind drift there because it's interesting to think
I
about,
have a
but
fancy imagination. I can see it.
it's hard for me to reconcile. Honestly,
Like, I don't know. What it comes down to at the end of the day is I
we don't
don't
know.
know.
We don't know.
Right? Like, what happened to Atlantis? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Giant skeletons have been found in China. I've seen newspaper articles. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Dragon bones and dinosaurs and how that all went. I don't know.
Then some people say that dinosaurs are fake. I mean, you have an entirely different.
I'm not going to say dinosaurs are fake. I'm just going to say that they were first introduced in 1800. And before then, no civilization on Earth
Ever talked
found
about it.
any dinosaur bones.
Were they good enough? Well, they must have been good enough to excavate because they built those pyramids and they built them really far down.
There's all sorts of history in the mud floods and Tartaria and hidden history that I think it's just been hidden from us.
Yeah.
And there was magic and there was harnessing of electricity through different like mercury metal things at the top of churches you can still see today that just don't make sense for like modern architecture or otherwise. And I think at some point humanity had it. Like we understood the magic and the connection of all things and the turning of the seasons. And a lot of that was rooted in like paganism.
Yeah.
And I think when Christianity came in, like bless Christ and the religion of Christianity came in and basically took all of paganism and cut out the feminine from it, made it the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, which like where'd the woman go? And took all of the magic of that essence of the land and of nature and of Mother Earth and the solstices and the equinoxes and how the entire world used to operate was in tune and in sync with the land. And like it just kind of disconnected us from all of that magic. And so I'm all about like reuniting us with that, be it through the words of great masters, be it through plant medicine, which brings us and has been a huge part of my journey, just allowing me to get past my own blocks, my own veils of illusion, back to like the core essence of divinity that is within me. And like how we all get there, whether it's music or meditation or nature or through our religion or our Messiah, like God bless it. I just think we could all benefit from putting more energy into those spaces as opposed to what we're kind of like churned up into is this focus on like how we're different or how the other person is bad. And so I think ultimately it just becomes this personal journey for every person to shift our reality internally. And the more I focus on God and my connection to divinity, the more that resonates around me. And the less I have to focus on like this person doing a thing I don't agree with or this politician doing some nonsense that a politician does and like not having to worry about it because I know that stuff happens. And I think the terms get thrown around a lot. And I'll just throw this little part out there. It's like uh, people get labeled conspiracy theorists. And I actually think it's conspiracy realists because those in power tend to conspire to keep power, to keep control, and otherwise. So there's conspiracy realists, those who know how industry works, and there's corruption deniers, those who refuse to see that human nature has brought a lot of people into corrupt spaces in all of the major industries. And so there comes a turning point, and I came to this where like, I know how corrupt it is, and maybe I don't, and I don't know all of the depths and all, but I've seen enough to know that that's happening. And like we can go through it all day and all the different things, and it's fun, and we did, and we will.
Yeah.
And what does it create in my world to like talk about people who are corrupt and trying to fool us? versus like, what is my world actually? And when I focus on my divinity, my connection to it through meditation, through music, through love and all the other things, that spreads naturally and effortlessly. And I don't need to try to teach people. I don't need to try to correct people. I don't need to try to guide people. Otherwise, I just get to be. And I think the more of us who just get to that place of like loving ourselves and being, the more it radiates out, and the quicker this awakening will happen, and like the less violence and war and nonsense it's all always has occurred will
Yeah.
continue to.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. It's definitely what the scripture prescribes. St. Thomas Aquinas says in his writings that a man can have peace when he submits his passion to his reason and his reason to God. Then he can have peace within himself. Then he can have peace with others. So it would certainly seem to be the case that the greatest religious philosophers in the Christian faith, and I regard St. Thomas Aquinas as one of them, say man has to have peace within himself first before he has peace with others.
Mm.
However, I will say the dark side of the moon, so to speak, is people do have a propensity toward groupthink, and people are very easily manipulated. You can make an argument that the Book of Revelations, whether you believe it to be true or not, depicts an inevitable scenario where mankind doesn't have the ability to overcome its flaws and shortcomings, and falls into deception. Now, the question then becomes, what obligation or duty do good people, quote unquote good people, well-meaning people, altruistic people, spiritually enlightened people, what duty or obligation do they have to try and lead something that is inevitable? Well, see, this is where the Christian doctrine has become what some would call kind of dangerous to the survival of Western society, but all of human civilization, because in Christianity, it says, like, I believe in Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. I've submitted my life to him, and everything else is secondary. But you still have to live on the earth, and there are still very earthly things, and you can definitely forego them. And this is where I think the separation between Christianity and Buddhism is really stark. Is the Buddha's reaction to despair was to resign from the world. The Christ's response to despair was to carry his cross and die for our sins. It's a much different, much different choice. There's a very different choice in that, and saying, hey, I can pull back from the world because it's going to be what it's going to be. And then there's, I can change the world. So I think that God more intended for us to change the world than he did for us to resign from the world.
I'm with that. I think there's a fine line between attempting to change the system versus creating new systems.
Amen.
And I think in creating new systems, we change the world. Not when we fight that which is, we create more fight and more tension. Nothing actually gets created. When we create new systems, then we can simply allow people's attention to be drawn to them. And the power of the world is people's attention. What we pay attention to is what happens.
Oh yeah, has a vibration to it.
That's why television and media is such a dangerous thing,
No
because the attention can be easily manipulated.
No doubt.
But we create systems that help communities and help people know themselves, help them find their inner peace, draw people's attention towards that. And then the old systems fall away. The advertising, the television, the mass consumption, the shitty food, like all the things, they just fade away because people don't pay attention to them anymore.
They don't bring them any value.
They don't bring them any value.
They lose their value.
That's it.
Yeah.
And right now we're in this dopamine driven, like satisfy me now consumerism thing where it's hard to draw attention away from it because we're stuck in these loops. And so like adding awareness is everything. And adding awareness, as far as I know, the best way is to meditate and learn to listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because then we can actually learn to choose and decipher information that's coming through our head instead of just running around like mindless zombies. So like whatever it is, I want to encourage everyone and all your listeners, I know you do continuously, but like that freedom of thought, like you don't need to agree with anything I say. Like it doesn't really matter, but like think for yourself.
Amen.
Like whatever that is, think for yourself. Don't believe what you're told. Believe what you know inside. And that seems to be a way that'll guide us all back home.
Amen. No, I agree with that 100%. And you make a very good point that if there's one thing God gave us, it's clear, distinct characteristic from all the other living beings is the ability to create.
Mm.
We have the power to create things, and in creation is certainly uh, the pathway to progress. Got to be mindful of the dark tendencies and wickedness of scientism and things like that too. But it's not just about systems like scientific. It's even ways of thinking, right?
Mm.
Like writing. Well, writing became a thing where before it wasn't. And I tell people, I said on the podcast the last couple of weeks, I'm really trying to stress to people, the intellect and the spirit are inextricably linked,
Mm.
right? And it tells us, like, that's why I don't agree with this IQ argument. I think there are baseline levels of intelligence, and there may be cultural and genetic baselines of intelligence, right? But the intellect is not static. That's not a Christian idea. The intellect can be developed. The entire Christian document is a intellectual development. It's a guide to intellectual development that then leads to spiritual enlightenment, right? So if the intellect can be developed and creation is our power, then our solutions are going to be in the creative and creating things. Like you said, we got to create new things,
Mhm.
not get caught up, bogged down, arguing over power and control of the old.
Imagine one idea I have with that, and as a politician, you can have this one for free, is if I were a politician, I would incentivize via taxes people to have their own gardens so that they would eat good food. They would have their hands in the soil, which leads to better health, less anxiety, which is less of a stress on the medical system, which leads to more sharing, more neighborhood feelings, more gifting, more being with the land and tending to it that they're in. And so it's really a shift because it would be a shift towards reward away from punishment. Right now we're dealing in a punishment system. You do something wrong, you don't pay your taxes, we take your shit. Like,
Right.
it's a mafia. That's how
Right.
it works. As we were talking
Tax
about earlier.
mafia, right.
Right. Instead of the government being like, we care about you, and if you're gonna like take a stand for your own health, we're gonna incentivize you. We're gonna give that to you.
Yeah.
And so like if people, and you know how horrible the food is and all the chemicals and all these things.
That's why RFK Jr. has been a godsend. People don't like him, think he's, whatever. But one thing he has said that nobody can really argue, there's something very, very dark and sinister and naive or neglectful about our food supply in this country and the effect that it's having on our health outcomes.
Yeah, we could throw it down and make it completely unmalicious and say that it's just a cost benefit thing for businesses, that to produce cheaper food means more chemicals.
Yeah, and
And
less
so-
quality, yeah.
And so I try to give like the
Benefit of the doubt.
corporations benefit of the doubt. I know there's malicious shit happening out there, but we could just like say all the way down there. But the solution,
The question is how much connection is there between what we put, you say, I organize the powers that be in the three distinct industrial complexes, medical, media, and military. And the food industry is a part of that medical industrial complex. And at the bottom, how much profitability or even basic control is there to put chemicals in people and then profit from the need of medical services when they get sick?
I hear the
That's-
interconnectivity.
That's
I
totally
get it.
and I'm not saying that it's okay. We're going to poison you, so you got to come to the doctor. That's the age-old adage. There's a lot of money thrown around, and
You could say it's a good business move,
yeah,
It
and
doesn't really care about humans, but it
that's
it
what
does
you said
contribute
earlier
business.
about science. Is it doesn't seem to really care about the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think getting back to caring about the well-being of every citizen is the way to go. And profits need to start taking a back seat to that. I think that's how everything changes. And I see you making those changes, having those conversations, and bless you for stepping into the ring of politics, which I never, ever want to do.
you'd be good for it.
And
You'd be good for
but
it.
being a stand man. Bless you
Yeah,
for doing
thank you, man. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in today. And before you go, we got a couple minutes here. We're bridging 2-hour mark, but we can push. I just want you to talk about the book again, where to get it.
Yeah.
Before we go.
Sure. So the book is called Coming In. You can get it on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website, zachpuchtel.com. It's a quick read. Coming up for the holidays, it's a great gift for anyone who is walking their path. It's why I wrote the book. Anyone who's walking their path, who has questions about life, love, identity, self, religion, God. I've done my best to put everything to question, from my most sincere, inquisitive self. And I'm excited to share it. I'm excited for everyone to read it and to get whatever they might get from it.
Amen, sir. I appreciate you being in today. It was a blast.
Yeah, man.
Seriously, Zach Puchtel, ladies and gentlemen. This edition of Family and Friends. Please call me crazy. We appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. Make sure you go get Coming In, zachpuchtel.com or amazon.com. Very intelligent man, very brave. Admire you a lot. One of the OGs of the Hopkins basketball community. Not only a great basketball player and athlete, but a brilliant man too. Brave. Thanks for being in here, man. We'll get you back whenever you want. You want to stop by, talk about anything?
Yeah.
People who talk in nuance and detail, we have to seek them out. We have to find them. We have to listen to them and let them inspire us to do the same. We need that maybe more than anything. Let's just start with that.
Yeah.
I looked the other day, I was posted a picture on the internet, a screen grab. It says the average American citizen reads at a 7th grade level, and over 54% read under a 6th grade level. If we take it all the way down to the intellect and the spirit are inextricably linked. You take it all the way down to the fundamentals, it's not hard to see why we're having so much trouble. And I hope we have an overhaul and reform of the education system and make it more about the things that you discussed today. Making citizens self-governing, self-reliant, introspective, give them the skills to survive, gardening, farming, welding, being able to survive, circumnavigating. I think they should take Boy Scouts and farming and the industrial arts and put that shit all in one curriculum and make it mandatory. Get away from this STEM, these STEM, not that math and reading and science aren't important. But the cold hard truth is math and science became the focal point of our society for a technological arms race. That is the cold hard truth of it. It's much less about making citizens who are self-reliant and self-governing and much more about the anomalous mathematician that can help us advance technologically past our national enemies around the world. We got to start to shift away from that and teach people how to be people again, ground people, like you said, ground people. Go outside, man. They should be taking kids outside. Now it's kind of dangerous, but they should be taking kids outside. Take your shoes off. Put your feet in the grass. Touch grass, as they say. We really need some of that in our schools. But I appreciate you, brother. God bless you. Thanks for coming in. Zach Puchtel, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back tomorrow evening with Dr. Chris Martinson, another brilliant individual. He's going to talk to us about the Charlie Kirk assassination, the things that he's uncovered in his investigation, and global economics. That's it for me. See you guys later. Godspeed.
Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.